Namaste, hello, and welcome to the NDTV Report on NDTV. I'm your host, Priyanka. Let's go straight into our first story. The 3 Pahalgam terrorists who were killed during Operation Mahadev in Jammu and Kashmir's Dachigam on July 28th were Pakistani nationals and senior operatives of terror outfit Lashkar-e-Taiba, or LET. This is according to evidence collected by security forces, and this firmly establishes it. Now, these terrorists had been hiding in Dachigam Harvan forest belt since the day of the Pahalgam attack, and no local Kashmiri was part of the shooting team. This is according to the proof report accessed by NDTV. Ghazali joins us live for more. Ghazali?
So these 3 terrorists named Suleiman Shah, Abu Hamza and Yasir, these 3 were the mastermind, or to say that these were involved in the Pahalgam terror attack. 2 of them were shooting at those tourists there on 22nd of April, and the 3rd one was appointed to sort of do the recce and ensure safety or security of these 3 terrorists from the backside in the area where they were shooting. All the documents which have been accessed from these 3 terrorists, there have been voter ID cards, some chocolates manufactured produced by a factory in Karachi, sat phones and other electronic devices which contains all the biometric details of these 3 terrorists have been accessed by the security forces, and the report sent out by the Home Ministry includes all the details and sort of stamps on the allegation which India has been putting on Pakistan, that these 3 terrorists came from Pakistan. Their entire route has been mapped and has been matched by the security agencies, that from LOC near the Gurez sector they crossed over into India, and that is when their sat phone became active. So all these details have been collected by the security forces, which confirms that Pakistan was behind the attack and these 3 terrorists came from Pakistan.
Thanks, Ghazali, for that. On to our next story. A senior official of U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, Stephen Miller, has accused India of financing Russia's war in Ukraine by purchasing oil from Moscow. The move came amid the United States escalating pressure on New Delhi to stop trading with Russia. Now, Miller tempered his criticism by noting Trump's relationship with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, describing it as tremendous. Listen in to Stephen Miller's remarks.
It is not acceptable for India to continue financing this war by purchasing the oil from Russia. People will be shocked to learn that India is basically tied with China in purchasing Russian oil. That's an astonishing fact. India portrays itself as being one of our closest friends in the world, but they don't accept our products. They impose massive tariffs on us. We also know they engage in a lot of cheating on immigration policies that is very harmful to American workers. And of course, we see again the purchasing of oil. So President Trump, he wants a tremendous relationship and has had always a tremendous relationship with India and the Prime Minister. But we need to get real about dealing with the financing of this war. So President Trump, all options are on the table to deal diplomatically, financially, and otherwise with the ongoing war in Ukraine.
As you can see there, Stephen Miller says it's astonishing that India is basically tied with China in purchasing Russian oil. President Donald Trump has confirmed his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, will visit Russia next week ahead of a looming U.S. sanctions deadline and escalating tensions with Moscow. Trump warned Russia of ordering the repositioning of 2 U.S. nuclear submarines after highly provocative statements of the country's former president, Dmitry Medvedev, as the 2 engaged in a war of words online. Listen in to the U.S. president's latest reaction to this.
A deal where people stop getting killed. They had a number that just came out that a tremendous number of Russian soldiers are being killed. And likewise, Ukraine, a lower number, but still thousands and thousands of people. And now we're adding towns where they're being hit by missiles. So it's a lot of people being killed in that ridiculous war. And, you know, we stopped a lot of countries from war, India and Pakistan. We stopped a lot of countries.
Activists of the National Citizen Party and the BNP student wing held separate rallies in Bangladesh on Sunday ahead of the first anniversary of the July uprising that toppled the Sheikh Hasina-led government on August 5th of last year. Our NDTV's Saurabh Gupta brings you all of the details. Saurabh?
Bangladesh is basically building up to August 5th, and August 5th is the anniversary of the toppling of the Sheikh Hasina government after violent protests rocked Bangladesh last year. Now, these protests started over a quota announcement or a quota decision by a court, but it soon turned into something much bigger. And eventually, on the 5th of August, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, had to flee Dhaka. Now, since then, there have been efforts to make this a turning point, and those who were protesting against Sheikh Hasina and those who are in charge of running the country now, including the interim government led by Mohammad Yunus, and those who were protesting on the streets of Dhaka and other parts of Bangladesh, say that August 5th is something that's going to be important, and they're wanting to also, come up with the July declaration. But at the same time, the trial against Sheikh Hasina, the International Crimes Tribunal, has already started. Day-to-day proceedings are taking place. In fact, what we've been given to understand is that from the details that we know is that there have been witnesses who have testified today on day one of those hearings that are taking place. In fact, the first witness who testified today, and this is of course in that court proceedings, said that Sheikh Hasina was responsible for killing thousands. The Awami League has denied all of these allegations. Sheikh Hasina has also denied these allegations.
Thanks, Saurabh, for that. Our next story, Pakistan supports Iran's right to develop nuclear capability for peaceful purposes as the two sides signed several agreements to expand cooperation in multiple fields. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, who arrived in Islamabad on Saturday, met Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif at his official residence. At a joint press conference following their meeting, Sharif emphasized that Iran has the right to peaceful use of nuclear energy, which has been the center of the ongoing tensions with Israel. Hamas said that it is prepared to coordinate with the Red Cross to deliver aid to hostages that it holds in Gaza. That is, if Israel meets certain conditions, after a video it released showing an emaciated captive drew sharp criticism from Western powers. Hamas said that any coordination with the Red Cross is contingent upon Israel's permanently opening humanitarian corridors and halting airstrikes during the distribution of aid. On Saturday, Hamas released its second video in 2 days of Israeli hostage Eviatar David. In it, David, skeletally thin, is shown digging a hole that he says in the video is for his own grave. The video of David drew criticism from Western powers and horrified Israelis. France, Germany, the UK, and the US were among the countries to express outrage, and Israel's foreign ministry announced that the UN Security Council will hold a special session on Tuesday morning on the issue of the situation of the hostages in Gaza. According to Israeli officials, 50 hostages now remain in Gaza, only 20 of whom are believed to be still alive. Hamas thus far has barred humanitarian organizations from having any kind of access to the hostages, and families have little or no details of their conditions. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of demonstrators have marched across the Sydney Harbour Bridge in Australia, calling for peace and aid deliveries in the war-ravaged Gaza Strip, where a humanitarian crisis of man-made starvation has been worsening as a result of Israel's punishing blockade. Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has visited the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem and prayed there, violating a decades-old arrangement covering one of the most sensitive sites in the Middle East. Photos and videos of his visit show Ben-Gvir leading Jewish prayers at the compound, which is known by Jews as the Temple Mount in occupied East Jerusalem. Praying at the site breaks a long-time arrangement that allows Jews to visit the site but not pray. The Israeli Prime Minister's office released a statement saying there had been no change to Israel's policy of maintaining the status quo agreement that allows only Muslim worship there. The bodies of all five miners trapped in a collapsed shaft in the world's biggest underground copper mine for 3 days have been found and identified, according to an official who said this on Sunday. Achilles Cubillos, the lead prosecutor in Chile's O'Higgins region, said the body of Moises Pavez, the last miner to remain missing, was found at 3:30 p.m. local time by rescue teams. They had drilled through dozens of meters of rock to reach the stranded workers. Listen in.
Finalmente, a las 15:30 horas, hemos encontrado al último de los trabajadores de la mina El Teniente que se encontraba desaparecido. Como lo hemos desarrollado en los demás casos, se dispuso los peritajes de rigor para establecer sus identidades. Se trata del trabajador Moisés Esteban Pavés Armijo.
The UK has unveiled plans for a new law that will crack down on criminal gangs behind social media advertisements promoting dangerous small boat crossings and other forms of illegal immigration into the country. This is under a new amendment to the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill currently going through the Parliament. A UK-wide offence will be introduced to criminalise the creation of materials for publication online which promotes or offers services facilitating a breach of Britain's immigration law. Sri Lanka received a total of 200,244 tourists in July of 2025, with Indian travelers accounting for the largest share, according to local media who reported this on Sunday. This marks an increase of 6.6% in total tourist arrivals as compared to figures from the same period last year, according to the latest data released by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. This means that Indians accounted for 18.5% of Sri Lanka's total tourist footfall. Plastics are a grave, growing, and under-recognized danger to human and planetary health, a new expert review has warned. The report says that the world is in a, and I quote, plastics crisis, which is causing disease and death from infancy to old age and is responsible for at least $1.5 trillion a year in health-related damages. The driver of the crisis is a huge acceleration of plastic production, which has increased by more than 200 times since 1950 and is set to almost triple again to more than 1 billion tons a year by 2060. While plastic has many important uses, the most rapid increases has been in the production of single-use plastics, such as drink bottles and fast food containers. Now, as a result, plastic pollution has also soared, with 8 billion tons now polluting the entire planet, from the top of Mount Everest to the deepest ocean trench. Less than 10% of this plastic is recycled. Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney will likely talk, and I quote, over the next number of days after the U.S. imposed a 35% tariff on goods not covered by the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. This is according to a Canadian official who said this on Sunday. Dominic LeBlanc, the federal cabinet minister in charge of U.S.-Canada trade, also told CBS News' Face the Nation that he was encouraged by recent discussions and believed a deal to bring down tariffs also remained an option. Maha Siddiqui brings more, but first, the latest from Carney. Listen in.
Look, Canada's strong. We can give ourselves far more than anyone can take away. We're building this great country. I just met with the Premier, building BC, building Canada, building in a Canadian way. Building sustainably, building together, building positively, and that's what we're going to do. And yes, we'll come to something with the Americans, something constructive with the Americans.
The August 1st deadline is over, and US has already imposed a 35% tariff on all non-CUSMA compliant goods that are exported from Canada to the United States. CUSMA is the agreement between Canada, US and Mexico. Now, Canada says that almost 89% of their goods are CUSMA compliant, which means that about 10% goods are going to be impacted. They also say that the average tariffs for Canada that US has imposed is one of the lowest right now as compared to the other countries that the US has targeted with its tariffs. However, there are 3 sectors that are very critical to Canada and where a huge impact is being seen because of the US tariff. That is lumber, aluminium and steel, and the automobile sector. So much so that the fallout is already being seen in the automobile sector, with job loss especially in the province of Ontario. So the US and Canada will continue to negotiate a trade deal despite the August 1 deadline that is long over. Now, this is what the Canada-US Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc has said, saying that Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, will continue to remain in discussion with US President President Donald Trump over the next number of days to be able to seal this deal. However, experts warn that a no deal might be better than a bad deal for Canada. Meanwhile, even as the two leaders of the countries, that is Canada and the US, remain in direct contact over the deal, the offices of Dominique LeBlanc and the US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick will remain in touch on the issue as well.
That was Maha Siddiqui reporting from Vancouver. Thanks for that, Maha. We are going to go into a short commercial break. Stay tuned for more stories. Namaste and welcome back to NDTV World Report. I'm Priyanka Deo. Let's go right into our next story. Private enterprises in the United States cut over 10,000 jobs in July due to a significant acceleration in AI-related restructuring, according to a report released by outplacement firm Challenger, Gray & Christmas. The report shows that as of July, U.S. companies have announced over 806,000 private sector job cuts just this year, setting a new record for the same period since 2020. Among them, the technology industry has become the hardest hit area, with over 89,000 jobs cut, up 36% year on year. Enterprises generally attribute layoffs to tariff pressure and the development of AI. The report indicates that since 2023, over 27,000 jobs have been directly replaced due to the rise of AI, and that the emerging technology has become one of the 5 main causes of unemployment this year. Despite curiosity around the new program, the launch date and specific details of which are yet to be released, data shows the existing investment-based residency program EB-5, which the Gold Card will replace, has seen more applications from India over the past 1 year than ever before. That's according to the American Immigrant Investor Alliance.